I'm going to start by asking one question. What does it mean to experience reality? I know we're talking about the future, and maybe some of it is scary, but let's maybe start talking about what's possible in the next 3 to 10 years. So what does it mean to be experiencing something? If you look back, 300,000 years ago, the only way to experience something was to do it. If you wanted to see what Mount Everest was, you had to climb it. Today, you can watch a video on YouTube. Fast forward a little bit to 40,000 years ago. That was when cave paintings first came up. And that was the first time you didn't have to do something. You saw something that was a depiction of reality, and you experienced it. Fast forward 5,000 years ago, the invention of the alphabet. Now we didn't see anything, we read something, and we were able to imagine what it was like to experience something. 20 years ago was the first virtual reality gaming experience. So this was where we said, forget about reading something, forget about seeing something. Let's just short circuit our brain to go right to the experience. And that's what VR was. That leads to the question, why is this happening today? And why are we here to talk about this today? And the idea is convergence. Zoltan, you covered convergence really well. There is a whole bunch of mega trends that are all coming together at the same time. And this has never happened in technological history. What are those trends? We have more processing power than ever before. We're creating more data than ever before. 90% of all the data that exists on Earth has been created in the last 2 years alone. We have super cheap storage costs, and we have tools like AI that allow us to deal with so much data and create meaning from it. So this is the convergence. What does that mean in the role of governments? So let's think about what governments are doing today. So you have the United States, where you come from, and the US is very pro-business. They're business-centric. The Googles and Facebooks of the world have been invented in the United States. If you look at China and the example of the social credit, technology and transformation is helping governments do better. If you look at the EU with things like the right to forget and GDPR, the government is focused on citizen-centric experiences. But there is this emerging trend. So the purple dot in the middle is what we call the rising capitals of the world. Dubai and the UAE is an example of a small nation making big impact. We're 46 years old, and we're having conversations at a global scale about AI, about blockchain. Why is that? It's because the UAE has found a way to align with all three axes to find a new path forward. With that, let's start talking about what it is for us in the government to continue to offer services and redefine what it means to be the government. So I'm going to kick off with perhaps a question for you, Zoltan. So we were talking about, so I've already asked you about whether your chip can be hacked, but let's fast forward. There's a bunch of tech you talked about: nanotechnology, gene editing, artificial intelligence. Do we agree on a definition of some of these technologies to be able to argue about them? You know, we paint AI as this big monster that could potentially kill us or take our jobs, but then even researchers don't agree on what it means to say AI. Can you maybe shed some light on that?
Well, I think what's really important to understand from a governmental point of view is that the United States Congress constantly is going to debate these things like Facebook and the elections and all that. But the reality is they're always 3 or 4 years behind. So even coming up with a definition is very difficult, because by the time you've defined something in science and technology today, it already changes in 18 months. The microprocessor is at the core of all things, and it's essentially doing a J-curve and doubling every 18 months in power and capacity. And even if it's not 18 months, it's 24 months, but whatever it is, it's so quick, it doesn't give culture, it doesn't give people time to adjust, even time to give the proper terms, because by the terms take vogue and hit the mainstream, a new technology has come up and made it obsolete. We used to talk about CRISPR-9 technology, genetic editing being the great technology. Well, CRISPR is frankly already basically being replaced right now by a new name. And then I already heard there's already something after that. And so, wow, all these technologies change so quickly, and so do the names. So I'm not sure we're ever going to agree on the names.
Mohammed, we take AI quite seriously in the UAE. We have a Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence. Can you maybe shed some light on the thinking behind why AI is a priority for the government?
Thank you, Danish. To start with, today AI is one of the priorities. And if you look at the agenda of the United Arab Emirates, we look at multiple things. One of them is data. We look at how we utilize technology to the best to serve our customers better. The main purpose of focusing on this is to make meaning of it, to understand it better, to let everybody in the public and people who are decision makers, people who work on developing government services and improving them, understand how can these technologies and these concepts help us drive a better experience for our customers. We don't look at it only from an angle of a technological perspective or it as being a technical thing. No, but how can it impact us positively, and how can we manage it so that we can, I would say, jump on the wagon early on and be leaders in delivering services using these capabilities.
Fantastic. Now, thank you for segueing into data. None of the technical progress is possible without the fuel that feeds it, which is data. Now, data is a strategic priority. At the Dubai level, there's the Dubai Data Law. At the federal level, there's a data initiative. Can you maybe tell us, let's start with the hard stuff. Let's talk about privacy and security first, and then let's move into where it can help us in continually improving customer experiences.
Now on a federal level, we're working on multiple initiatives to design models around utilizing data in a manner that is acceptable to all stakeholders. So we look at government utilizing the data in a way that can enable us to have insights on customer behavior, have insights on experiences, and be able to proactively address matters that are more important to our customers. Obviously, privacy is a concern. And we are today looking at global models that have been used and utilized to utilize data in a manner that doesn't expose individual data and information to public or to the government per se, but it makes this data usable to allow us to drive better experience to our customers.
Fantastic. Zoltan, on the data side, can you maybe give us some example on your campaign trail on the road? Now, what's interesting about campaigns is that you are dealing within the framework of the government, so you have some confines, but you're maximizing your access to data. Can you maybe give us a quick example of where data was really useful on your campaign trail for president?
Well, I think data is, frankly, become everything, and I'm not even sure that's necessarily a good thing when you're talking about politics, because the problem with data is that you can actually spread through fake bots all over the internet, fake data, and that can skew everything, as we saw with Facebook and things like that. And I think fake news and those kinds of tactics are one of the most important challenges that we face in terms of data, is that data is not always authentic, and the ability to create data with these machines, you can create enormous amounts very quickly. But on the campaign trail, we use it in terms of polling, and we use it in terms of trying to figure out who might be interested in science and technology. The people interested in science and technology in America are almost always oftentimes educated, oftentimes of a certain kind of demographic, so we often had targeted them. But I think, in terms of really winning real votes, it's got to be everybody, and that's where sometimes data fails. Sure. And so I think you just have to be a bit careful with big data.
I think it's worth, perhaps, Mohammed, you talking about the fact that the United States does not have a federal policy for data. The UAE has laws that govern the use and protection of data across the government. This makes it one of the world's first governments to have done that. I think that's where the distinction allows us to say, we will use this data for good, we will protect it with the right frameworks, and use it for continual improvement, rather than one silo using it for their advantage, and that becomes a disadvantage. Now let's maybe talk about where data is evolving. So algorithms are starting to make decisions for us increasingly. So university applications, bank loans, your credit scores are all run by algorithms. If something goes wrong, they blame the algorithm. The algorithm is the blamable entity. So people set up companies to protect themselves. Now companies are setting up algorithms to protect themselves, right? So let's talk about accountability with algorithms, maybe. Can we, Zoltan, would you like to take that, Mohammed?
Well, so it is funny that, of course, I'm in a country where there are laws about data, and America doesn't. But, America is always this, as we mentioned up front, business-centric. So there's no question that if you leave data free, companies will benefit more by just letting the data go anywhere, and then that way they can own it, anyone can own it, it can go all over. But that's not necessarily the best for the population. It might be best for the corporations and the shareholders. But I think a lot of Europeans, which recently came up with a major data plan, decided, sort of like Dubai, United Arab Emirates, that having some type of safeguard and some type of law centered around data was a good thing. I'm still a little bit mixed on the issue. I actually like where you have an openness and anything can go anywhere and anything can belong to anything. Once it's out there, it's just a no man's land. But I understand that after seeing what happened in the 2016 elections, how dangerous it is to just have data out there being manipulated. Not everyone is as perceptive as the people in this room that can make sense of real news and real data and fake data. And that's the problem. Until the big companies come up and govern themselves, it may take the government to create laws to govern it like UAE has done.
Any comment on that?
Today, we have a lot of work. I'll just shed the light on the work we're doing here to identify methods to ethically control these algorithms. So how do we embed ethics in designing these algorithms, and how do we audit these algorithms that we are going to design for let's say in AI or in gathering data and analyzing this data? It's important to have that aspect as a priority within the entire movement of utilizing AI and data. And we have seen other benchmarks globally where this has been utilized and have been used, but mainly in the private sector. And we want to bring that experience into the government also.
So speaking of data and algorithms, you know how in the United States you vote for your senator? So your senator is supposed to take care of you and your responsibilities and needs. If an algorithm is making those decisions, do you not think there is a potential future where I get to vote for my algorithm?
Well, we actually think that there's a very good possibility that we will have AI politicians probably within 10 to 15 years. And the reason is, in the end of the day, what a machine intelligence will do will create algorithms that try to do the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. It's a very simple formula. In America, politics is run by essentially lobbying and third-party donors and stuff like this. I mean, we have so much what we call under-the-table handling that it's almost impossible. You know, let's just take Trump. He recently nominated for one of the major presidential medals of honor, one of his largest donors on his political campaign. And this is, I don't know, I'm not saying it's a violation of rights or anything. What I'm just saying is that seems a bit strange when you could reward somebody who contributed to your campaign. What I had looked at as a smaller candidate was trying to have a completely fair playing field in politics where actually the best politician wins based on the best ideas. But in America, it's very much guided by money and power and connections. And I don't know if that really serves the interest of the public. What serves the interest of a public is coming up with an algorithm that looks for the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. And that's where AI and data can be instrumental, I think, in helping various nations around the world, like UAE, in saying, this is the best way to provide services for you. We have found almost a magic code, and this will make your life the best.
All right, so let's use that and segue into what is the government's role? So the UAE has always been at the forefront of challenging the role of government, the role of leadership. If you look at the poetry of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, he often talks about what is the role of a leader. And the concept of happiness as a mandate to be able to measure has led to technology becoming a tool to get towards the goal of happiness. So can we maybe talk about what is the next shift? I know that you are rethinking what the government will do for the ecosystem, which is individuals, businesses, other government employees, entities from outside, investors. I mean, the entire ecosystem has an interaction point with the state, and that's where services come in. Can you maybe tell us a little bit, or reveal for the first time perhaps, what is this right here?
Okay, GX comes from the term government experience. We have been working on improving government services for 10 years now, I would say. And we looked at different models on how do we improve government services, how do we train our teams, our people on how to deliver services from a customer point of view. Today, we want to take this shift and this step forward where we go and look at it as more of an experience. Just like how organizations like a theme park look at the experience of their customers when they walk into the theme park, from the point they step in, or maybe the point when they start searching about which theme park to go to, until they get the service and they're happy with it and they walk away. And this is how we want to look out at the government today. We want to be an experience, a positive, happy experience for our customers. Our customers being at commercial entities, individuals who are citizens or tourists, doesn't matter. Whoever has a touch point with the government has to experience the government in a positive way, and in a way that touches them positively, going after the service, going away after the service. Hence, we have the GXTalks. This is where we want to start the dialogue. Public-private sector, individuals, experts, scientists, people who worked in these fields, to come and shed the light on experiences. How do I make the experience better? Just like when we look at, for example, the online experience on one of the online shopping portals. This online experience evolved over the past 15 years to something that it is today, where it caters to your needs before you even ask for it. You are reminded to buy something before you even know that it finished, a certain product, before you even know that it finished from your stock at home, I would say. And this is where we want to be. We want the government to be proactive. We want the government services to be, it knows its customer and the needs of the customer, and be able to attend to customer needs and give that awe effect, you know, where when I remind my customer that your national ID, for example, is ready and it will be delivered to you within 2 days, without even having that request come from the customer, that is the awe effect we want to get to the customer. When a new baby is born, all of the documents are issued automatically because we already know that the baby is born. Why should the customer apply to get the formal documents? We know that this is given and the customer needs to get it. This is where we're trying to go. We're trying to look at it as an experience overall, make sure that the journey is designed from a customer point of view, rather than from STEP's point of view.
Fantastic. So you're saying that, I mean, you're encouraging everyone in this room who's a critical player in making this shift happen to start thinking beyond services.
Absolutely.
So start thinking experience first, service second.
Absolutely.
All right. Zoltan, let's move over to you for a quick second. Have you got any good examples in your experience of where what you talk about, which is transhumanism, which is the divide between technology and human beings sort of almost disappearing? Can we maybe talk about what does that mean for experiences in government?
Well, I think what's most important to realize is that the things I talked about are probably coming inevitably. I would say that there's 99% chance that all these technologies will eventually come. The question is really the timeline. Is it 10 years or 20 years? So experience is going to change dramatically as our perception of reality changes. If we have a robotic eye that's tied to our brain and we can streamline different types of, let's say, government offers or government services through our brain, where it can go instantaneously, telepathically send that back out into the internet. Again, something that will almost certainly be possible in 15 or 20 years. How does that change our experience? The idea is, I think you want to make government as almost as invisible as possible, so that it's so streamlined, it's so simple, it's so easy, you don't actually think about having to, I got to get a driver's license. I got to go there and do, I mean, honestly, in California, to get a driver's license is a 4 or 5 hour endeavor. I was just in Portugal and I accidentally left my driver's license at a hotel and I almost drove back 2 hours to get it because I thought it's quicker to drive 2 hours backwards to get it than it is to actually go to the DMV in California. So you need to make these services, regardless of the technology you have, streamlined and as efficient and easy as possible. But I think it gets much easier the more technology we have in our lives. I think that's the key with technology is really just a tool that increases efficiency, and every year it gets more efficient.
Absolutely. In the UAE, we like to say technology should either be beautiful or invisible. And this is true. We're sitting in the Services One, which is a co-creation laboratory, which is where you're engaging with your customer base to create services that are meaningful to them. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Services One has been established to be the platform where different government entities sit together to develop services that are bundled, that enables a one-stop shop for the customers. Instead of a customer trying to visit multiple entities or multiple government happiness centers, government happiness centers, they go to one-stop shop that will give them a full package. We've had co-creation sessions that are done here with the customers. Customers talk about their experiences. Customers talk about their wish lists. It is a laboratory. It is a platform where we prototype concepts and then take them to the mass. We utilize this also for testing other technologies that are related to utilizing customer data and how can we use that data to improve services. The good thing is that we have seen a lot of pickup from the customers. Customers would like to come and try the services here and give us feedback on their experience. Is it better? What do they think needs to be added or removed? It's an interesting platform that we've seen have shown a lot of success. And what we're doing now is we're taking it to the next level. We want to make it richer with content, richer with enabling customer feedback, and government intelligence, I would say.
Amazing. So would you say that you want to go from the one-stop shop, which you're working on now, to a no-stop shop?
Absolutely. As much as we can, yes, no-stop shop.
So you don't have to show up to a service center at all?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's maybe now move on to, should we fast forward to 20 years? So 20, what would that be? 2038, right? 2038. I'm not going to tell you how old I'll be in 2038. I'll be 38. All right, let's fast forward to that. Zoltan, can you help us understand, what do you think the government will look like?
Well, I think at that point, the government will be very minimal and invisible to a huge extent, because I think at that point, there'll be a lot less physical interaction between people. You will either have implants in your brains that allow you to download all the information. And even if you didn't have that, you would then have all sorts of virtual, augmented, or holographic types of assistance from government that just comes in forms of pure data, things that don't involve biological people. And I think that's really one of the things out there is that almost like your iPhone or your smartphone, when you look at your phone, it's like you're constantly getting these little messages. You're constantly getting these different types of direct things. It's whether it's Instagram, whether it's a text, whether it's your calendar. In the future, I think we're going to have that, except in very different realities all around us. And this will probably be more and closer in 10 years, because honestly, when we start looking at 2038, we're talking about artificial intelligence potentially already being 1 million times smarter than human beings, 1 million. Because probably in 10 or 15 years, it could already be smarter. But definitely by 2038, I think we would be there. That's subject to some experts will disagree on the timeline, but clearly we'll be in almost a different age. I mean, we already have people that are trying to grow eyeballs on the back of their head with genetic editing techniques. So, and that's in today's world. Will we be growing multiple limbs? Will we enter almost the Star Wars era by 2038, where we could have all different types of species? Our brains have already been augmented. Definitely, our brains are going to be tied to the clouds, and we'll think in real time machines. We'll be able to put on a panel like this without actually leaving our office. Or we won't have offices. We'll probably just stay at home. Or maybe be on the beach. Maybe we'll have a lot more leisure. But ultimately speaking, when you're talking about something in 2038, it's really going to be a different world. The real question is 2028. how have we improved government services then so that it's virtually invisible? And I think a lot of it's done through the different types of realities out there that can be projected into either directly into our minds or just through holographic things or different types of augmented realities.
Thank you, Zoltan. As a government, we not just have strategies for the next year or 3 years. We've got a 2050 strategy. We've got plans for 2071. We've got plans for 2117. So obviously the progressiveness of the government in trying to imagine and build scenarios and be prepared for it is unparalleled. Can you shed some light on where you think it's going to go when maybe 10 years, and then let's talk 20 years?
In 10 years, I would say it's a more clear vision, I would say. Yes, AI is still, we don't know. The timelines are not clear. The utilization of data is not very clear. But what I see is we will see more governments that are more virtual. We will see citizens who are virtual, and governments will be more dynamic and invisible to the citizens. We already see today, as we speak, some governments have citizenships that are issued online. You can be a digital citizen, and you can apply to that citizenship. If I would go even further, citizenship will become a subscription rather than tax-based.
I love
so
that.
like how you subscribe to a certain portal to get services from it online, you can subscribe to be a citizen of a certain country and benefit from the services of that virtual government. So you can get your trade license, you can actually benefit from other services, like getting an identity from that country.
Right.
And even without even being part of that country, not being there physically. You can be living anywhere else but be part of that. I see it going in that way. It will become more of an online virtual environment where you interact with co-citizens in that area, and you benefit from a certain model of governing that citizenship. That's how I see it. It might be a bit radical, but
That's fantastic.
that's the way it's going, I would say.
I have a question. So you know how we talk about customer-centric design? So it's about putting the customer in the middle and then working backwards. I shouldn't have to change my life for the process of the government. The government will adapt around me. This is a thinking that you're constantly pushing. What happens when you totally eradicate that? So how do you shift from responsiveness to predictiveness? And maybe you can give me one example of something you're working on now that moves from you understanding me and doing something because I want it versus you telling me I need something before I know I need something.
Yes. Let me take you a bit a step back to just let you understand what we're doing today to be able to build that capability. So what we're doing today is we're deploying tools in the hands of our customers to enable us to understand more what their needs are and their experiences are. So for example, we have the happiness meter.
Yes.
The happiness meter is deployed in, we have more than 4,000 points that have been deployed across our government, where we take feedback from our customers. And this is also coupled with other data that we're getting from sensors that we have deployed in our customer happiness center, sensors that we have on our websites and on our mobile applications to measure customer experience. All of that data is gathered and analyzed on instantly to give us insights on the customer experience, how customers feel, what steps do they take, and try to map their journeys in the actual life. So sometimes when you go look at the journeys on paper, does not reflect fully what the customer experience in real life. Today, with the tools that we have, with the happiness meter, we have AI cameras that are deployed in our customer happiness centers that will also measure the emotions of our customers. How do they feel when they walk in? And how do they feel when they're getting the service? And how do they feel when they walk out? And that kind of measurement is giving us insights, and it's connecting the dots for us to allow us to understand their experience and redesign how we offer these services to them. We look at the customer sentiments also. on social media, on online platforms, other modes of media like radio, TV. We look at feeds on news feeds, online and newspapers, and take that and bundle them together into like, I would say, service intelligence that allow us to design services proactively. So today I'll give you an example of a service which we have designed is Mabruk Mayak. Mabruk Mayak in English is congratulations on the baby you got. We took these multiple services of issuing different identity, birth certificate, other matters that are needed when you get when there is a newborn, and we put it in one bundle. And all of that is proactively designed in a way that the customer will only submit once and pay for the service once, and then get all of the services within 3 hours. This used to be done within 15 days, and multiple payments, multiple visits. Today it's being done in one step. We started looking at services of issuing government identities and government documents that expires, like for example, a land deed or a rental certification. We have done it in some of the Emirates where it is an automatic push notification is sent to your mobile telling you that your rental is expiring within this date. Do you click here to start the renewal process? So we enable you and remind you and take you to the service rather than you come and take the service. And these are steps we're taking now, and there are a lot to come.
Perfect. Well, I think with that, I'd like to thank both you, Mohammed, as well as Zoltan. But I think this is an interesting time to ask questions. So I'm going to open it up for any questions for either of them. Can somebody pass a microphone over? Okay, you can take mine.
So my question is for the Happiness Meter initiative. I understand that the objective is to make sure that we grasp the happiness for the customer side. What are the implications for this initiative on the services delivered by the entities, the government entities? Because there is an aspect that measures the customer sentiment, but what are the implications on services delivered?
Thank you. As I mentioned, the insights that we get from this is taken as per service. So we understand the customer experience in specifically on a certain service and in the location and the time. This kind of insight allow us to understand if the customer had comments about a certain service or a not fully positive experience on a service. We understand specifically what went wrong there. And that insight is taken as an input into redesigning that specific service, or maybe taking that service and bundling it into a bundle with other services. So sometimes the experience of that customer is, for example, bad, not because of the specific service. It might be because of the sequence of steps that the user needed to, the customer needed to take to receive this service. And we take that into account into designing a bundle and a delightful customer experience.
Hello, my name is Badr Al-Awadi. I'm from Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. I actually have a thought that always crosses my mind. I wonder now, when I look at this, what's going to happen in the future, how genetically you can modify babies, how would that influence how you feel? I mean, part of me getting excited about life is to go and read a book to get smarter. In order for me to get stronger, I would go to the gym. To learn more, I would read more, I will attend courses, I will get different certifications. So my question is to you, Mr. Zoltan, is how do you think this would affect the way we feel? How positive are we going to be? Because the way I see it, I feel like a lot of people will have suicidal thoughts because they have nothing else to achieve in life. He's the smartest person in the room. He knows everything. Your thoughts, please.
Well, I think, you brought up two really good points. And the first one is like, when we enter the age of having implants, there's a very good chance we also enter the brain implants. We enter the age almost like a matrix where you can upload and download information. So already my wife and I debate the idea of whether we should save money for our kids' college. Because I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and there's a very good chance that my 4-year-old, let's say by the time she got to college and even medical school, let's say, and my wife would like her to become a doctor like she is, you wouldn't even have to go to school. You would download this information or upload it, however you want to look at it. So do you save for college? And I'm sure everyone in this room has faced that dilemma. How much do you save for your kids? So all of the things that we do, all the institutions start changing. All the things we believe in long term happen to us will also be affected because of these types of technologies. So it is very confusing. But to address your question, will people become depressed because they know everything? And the answer is, if they just remained, I think, biological, yes. But our destiny actually lies with merging ourselves with artificial intelligence. And we are going to have server farms that fill up these towers so that your computational power is going to be thousands and thousands of times your brain right now. Your senses, because you might have robotic limbs, won't be limited to 5 senses, but they'll be limited to hundreds, maybe thousands. So you can't, right now when we look at the human being, we see it as what we call anthropomorphic. We see it as a human being that is based on our biological bodies and our human consciousness and our human brain. But that's not where we're going to be in 20, 30, 50 years. And again, timelines may change, but there's certain things we're not going to get out of this century as human beings. We're going to enter it as something else. And will that change our experience? You betcha. It's going to be all different types of reality, all different types of senses. As robotic arms, we're going to have the ability to make our coffee warm instantaneously with our fingertips. We're going to see gases all over with our robotic eyes. I will see the germs on the neighbor. I will see different types of light spectrum. Our eyeballs only see 1% of the light spectrum right now in the universe. 1%. Our hearing hears less than 1%. When we start augmenting our senses and tying that to artificial intelligence and merging with the machine, our capacity as a human being, our thinking capacity, is going to be dramatically different. So I'm not worried that we're going to get bored, nor am I worried that we're going to be depressed. I think it's going to make exploration of ourselves ever more complex. So I think it's a very exciting time to go into.
One more. I think what His Excellency Mohammed, you have mentioned about the GX is very important. I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs today is one of the few government entities that we operate outside UAE. And we've seen it. We're having more than 128 missions all over the world. And customers behave differently in each zone you go to. In Africa, there are different needs than Asia, than Europe. Starting from the experience, from the customer experience, is a very important point that we believe it's going to be an added value for our customers abroad as well.
There was a lady at the back. Do we still have time for a couple of questions? Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Lara Damarjian. I work in the service improvement in government. Just a quick question about the feelings that you have. Do you feel different having a chip like in your hand, and then you feel like you could be hacked one day, for example, or like somebody can invade your system with the new technologies? Does it feel different?
So first off, having a chip in your hand, this is tiny. You get it through a syringe. It's the size of a grain of rice. It goes in 3 seconds. So I feel no different. And of course, there are millions of people around the world that have other types of technologies in the body. In fact, 500,000 people around the world have brain implants already. Most of the brain implants are for curing deafness, or also to stop Alzheimer's or dementia, or even soldiers. I mean, former President Obama put $70 million into a DARPA, which is to cure PTSD when you come back depressed from a war zone, and your chip implant would do that. And so there's actually technologies being developed to cure depression now as a result. But the real question is, does it change who you are? And it's almost like driving a car. Yes, it changes your life in the beginning, and yes, it seemed a bit weird if you were used to like walking to work or something like that. But we adapt to all technologies over time, especially when our neighbors get that technology and our neighbors get the better job because they decided to accept that technology and then we didn't. So really, I feel a lot of the technological development that we're going to accept, even if it seems radical, you're going to have to do it if you want to keep your job and if you want to keep going further in prosperity. In the end of the day, this is a competition to some extent. So we're going to take the better upgrades so that we can remain more competitive in the workforce. So even if we don't like some of the transhumanist technologies out there, we'll probably accept them just because we don't want to fall behind economically.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Zoltan again. A round of applause for Zoltan and Mohammed bin Taliah. And I think maybe now I should reveal that he's actually a hologram. Mohammed, would you like to say some parting words?
Thank you very much, Zoltan, for being here and taking the time for this. And thank you all for being here. I would like to emphasize on the importance of taking what we heard here and maybe looking at it even further. And how can we take this experience into our daily lives? How can we make sure that we're aware of this? And how can we use it to build on our jobs today? Like what we're doing today is improving government experience, improving government services. A lot of the information we have here have points that will help us and enable our capabilities to be able to deliver better experience. I would request you all to take this information. If you have any further questions, you can also ask the team here to help you and guide you with more information about what we heard today. And hopefully we will look forward to see you in the future GX Talks. Thank you.
Thank you all.